Oh, we're here. Hey, Mike Davis.
What's up? What's up? How you doing?
And hello to all of our viewers. I am Julia Jessie with Converge Media with my co-host, the big homie, Mike Davis of the South Seattle Emerald. And I am so happy to be here.
We glad to have you. Glad to have you back.
I'm glad to be back. It was weird I watched you guys on the show last week. They said you did so well. Thank you for filling in for me, my good sis. But I'm happy to be home. I'm happy to be back with y'all. It's just better when I'm here so I can not have to watch from the sidelines. Mike, you're very serious today. Well, I know we got some heavy topics. So is that why
Yeah,
you're very serious tonight?
it's crazy too. We was talking to O before the show. Like, I tried to find some fun, but
Mhm.
really, this it's just been a hard week. We've been hit with a lot emotionally all week long.
Yeah, y'all, tonight's show is going to be a little bit heavy, but I hope you hang in there with us because even though we have heard a lot about it in the news, the way that we're going to cover some of these stories is we really want to talk about it like we were at the barbershop, like we were at the beauty salons, around these round tables. This is our circle. We are a family. So please chime in the comment section and let us know how you feel about some of these things.
Yeah.
So,
Hey,
to that,
real fast though, man. You
oh,
you you look nice, man. I'm liking that. I'm
oh, you
liking
like
that.
you like my
Girl,
swag?
yeah, I like that.
Man, this
Okay.
is this is some again another Talia Addy
Look.
piece. Hey, to go to
That's crazy.
taliaaddy.com. I'm telling you, my good girlfriend Georgia Johnson, she is the owner and creator of Talia Addy, taliaaddy.com. And it's really a piece, some African cloth. This is actually from Tanzania. So I got some of this cloth there. She actually asked me to pick her up some material, and she made me a couple pieces. So
That's what's up.
you see
Okay.
me, got my African swag on.
Trey Holiday swag right there.
I was just gonna
Hey,
say that. I'm come. Thank you, Trey Holiday.
now
I'm a
we
hook
got
my
to
girl
start
Trey.
on a light note, so that's good. That's good because when we
It
hop
is.
in,
We lighten the mood a little bit, but we're gonna make it heavy again right now. So here's what we're going to talk about, you guys. A lot of the stuff you have already heard about again, but we're going to add a little bit of our spin and twist to it. We have to talk about the police killing of Ma'Khia Bryant. That's the 16-year-old in Columbus, Ohio, that was shot and killed in front of her house by a police officer. We're going to talk about the U.S. police officer that donated to the Kyle Rittenhouse, or a fund set out for him. The Supreme Court ruling that will make it easier to sentence juveniles to life without the possibility of parole. And of course, we're going to clap back at the Derek Chauvin verdict. We got a lot to talk about there. And the DOJ starting and launching an investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department. So we got a lot on the menu. Let's go ahead and get to it right now. Okay, Ma'Khia Davis. So just as the verdict was coming in on the Derek Chauvin trial, we got word that a police officer in Columbus, Ohio, shot and killed 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant. The neighbors reported that Ma'Khia herself was the one to call 911 and requested an officer come because there was a group of girls trying to fight in front of her house. When officers got there, the police body camera footage that was released shows that Ma'Khia was charging at another teenage girl in what looked to be like an attempted stabbing. So the officer came out, discharged his weapon, and shot her 4 times and fatally killing her in front of her neighbors and family. And so I think we have a clip. We're going to run that clip. And when we come back, we're going to talk about it.
This never should have happened. She's a loving girl.
The mother of Ma'Khia Bryant is understandably hurting right now and desperate for answers.
I don't know all the details about what happened here today, but it needs to stop. Policies and procedures need to be in effect. I'm hurt. I want answers.
16-year-old Ma'Khia was shot and killed by Columbus police yesterday after officers were dispatched to the area when someone called 911, saying they were being physically threatened. Police released more body camera footage today, showing the scene from different perspectives as an officer approached a driveway with a girl in black swinging a knife. The officer, identified today as Nicholas Reardon and who's been on the force since 2019, shouts for her to get down before firing 4 shots.
Under those circumstances, the officers actions, once again, based on those totality of the circumstances, were reasonable.
Kevin Davis, a 39-year law enforcement veteran that now serves as a court-certified use of force expert, says as he analyzes the body camera footage, he sees just cause for the officer to protect the other woman, and that a taser or other method to try and stop the incident may have resulted in the other woman getting killed.
I'd love to say that we could shoot the knife out of her hand or shoot her in the leg, but those things just aren't realistic under these circumstances, situations where the officer is shooting to save a life.
Meanwhile, Columbus Mayor Andrew Ginther spoke out about it today and the need for transparency.
There were a lot of things being said and shared out in the community that may or may not have been consistent with what we have seen with our own eyes here.
As BCI continues its investigation into the shooting, hundreds who were in the streets of Columbus awaiting the Chauvin verdict spent last night protesting this shooting, a tragedy that resulted in a mother losing her child.
I will never see Ma'Khia Bryant ever again. And I want justice for my daughter.
Mike Davis, thoughts and reactions. I mean, you're a father of a daughter, so I can't imagine what that feels like to you watching this. I know that Ma'Khia Bryant's father is actually in there when all of this happened. So what's your take on this?
It's cumulative, I would say, first of all, because I remember, so I was writing my reaction to the Chauvin trial right after it wrapped up, wrote it, hit send, and before I could even get away from the computer, there's reports that a 16-year-old girl who called the police for help ended up shot. So, of course, being from Seattle, the first thing we're going to think, Charlena. Like,
wow.
It's just hard to give the officers the benefit of the doubt in any of these situations because they kill people so often. Like, it's like you watch the video and it's hard. It's just hard, man. I don't have an answer. I really don't. Yeah. I watched the video. I seen the clip. There's no way to prepare this. There's no way to put words. I mean, she lost her daughter. I don't know what could have been done because I'm not an expert. And I think that that's what frustrates me the most is that even the people who are supposed to be experts don't feel like experts. It feels like these situations happen and then they just make up some stuff on the fly to feed the public. But it's like when the police say, standard operating procedures, or they want to lean on the tactics that they get in training, it's like, well, we witness you guys kill unarmed people for no reason. You kill armed people excessively. I think back to even like Gregory Taylor, who got shot here, and he had just killed 2 people. But when you see the amount of bullets that SPD shot in a neighborhood, during my reporting on that, I'm walking around, I'm seeing bullet holes in the park and garbage cans. There was literally bullet holes in houses on the far side of the park. So it's like police they're so prone to kill people. They're so prone to let off way more shots than they need to. It's like it's hard for me to see any video and give the police the benefit of the doubt because of what their track record is. So at the end of the day, somebody lost their child, somebody lost their baby. And on top of that, she was in distress. So, I mean, if you get the call that she's being jumped and she needs help, I'm inclined to believe that she had that knife to protect herself. And you see how many people is out there. She was fighting one person, then she's trying to fight someone else. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. I really don't.
Yeah, it's I think there's a lot of layers to this, right? And first and foremost, her life was cut short by unjustifiable use of force. And in the clip, what really kind of stood out there is that this use of force expert not only says that the officer used reasonable force, he also refers to Ma'Khia Bryant as a woman. And I think that it's so important that we take that into consideration. Before I came on the show, I was talking to my brother about it. It's extremely important that we remember that when you are a Black child, you get to that age where you have to have a conversation. And we talked about this when we first started this show, is that you have to have those conversations with your children to let them know that when they step out into the world, they are seen as adults and they are seen as threats. Now, this story to me is a little bit heavy loaded because I saw a lot of people on social media talking about that this is not the same thing as George Floyd and some of the other police brutality cases that we've seen. However, I beg to differ in a sense that had this been white kids or not anything other than Black or brown kids, and people pulled up or the police had pulled up on this, they would have found non-lethal approaches to break up this fight. I think it's interesting that when we think about if this was all white girls outside fighting each other and one of them had a knife, the police wouldn't have stepped the same way. You could have tasered someone. You could have pepper sprayed the crowd. You could have put your body and your back into breaking them up, right? And so I can't stand here and feel comfortable that a police officer made a 30-second split decision to pull out his firearm and shoot her not one time, but 4 times. And then you have this person, I was going to say an expletive, but you have this person in the clip that we just watched say that, oh, that's just in the movies when you shoot people in the leg. Why is that only in the movies, right? Why do we not, again, have any de-escalation tactics? You don't know who's outside. You don't know the situation. You're coming into the scene like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And you're seeing all these other people not reacting. And so it's crazy that we're continuing to have these conversations about deadly force. Why is it your first go-to to pull out your weapon and shoot somebody not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times? You shot a child 4 times in the back to save another woman. You don't know, it's just, she's on her own property. You don't even know if that's self-defense, right? Number one, you don't know what you're walking to the scene and you don't know what's happening. And so I think to criticize the officer is necessary. And we're really walking such a fine line because right now, this whole conversation is really speaking to policing as a whole. It's not just about brutality, but about holding police accountable for their actions and their policies and procedures. They are trained and granted immunity because they are taught these tactics before they go out into the field, and it's justified and they're protected by the law. And so what is it that we are going to do? What are the necessary steps that we need to take in order to dismantle that system?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think we're in a place right now where it feels impossible to look at the micro as opposed to the macro. Like it's policing as a whole. It's hard to look at anything as individual just because of the body of work that we're seeing from the police. And I mean, this one is just hard for me too, just as a parent. Like I really just don't know how to feel. I mean, if somebody has a knife and they're charging at my kid, I want that person to be stopped. Does that mean shoot a kid 4 times in the chest? I would hope that that's not the only option that we have. But I mean, the girl in the pink is a kid too. That's somebody's baby too. And she was seconds away from being stabbed. I don't know the answer. But what I do know is I'm just not in a place where I can give the police the benefit of the doubt on their uses of force based on the track record that they have with our community, based on the way that they police us, based on the way that there's other videos circulating the internet right now of white folks in Minnesota doing all kind of stuff to avoid getting arrested by the police, and there wasn't no shots fired or nothing. And we're going to talk about policing in Minnesota later in the investigation. And in that clip, they run off some of the same exact numbers that I've ran off on this very show about policing in Minnesota. So when you have that body of work, it's hard for us to take you at your word because you haven't earned the trust or the respect of the public.
Mike, I mean, there was a post by Sean King, and he said it best. He said, white kids beat the shit out of each other every day in all 50 states with knives involved. And routinely it gets broken up by teachers, by coaches, by doctors, nurses, parents,
Absolutely.
and yes, sometimes the police. And yes, knives are present. And so one thing that my brother said to me that I thought about too is that there are so many occasions where we can think about the police taking down a person without using lethal force who's shot and killed hella people. So why in this situation was so chaotic. It was so much, it was confusing. It was chaotic. They had no idea what was going on. It doesn't even matter that Ma'Khia Bryant had a knife to me, because this is normal. I mean, I told you guys that I sat on a call about public safety with these youth. And here in DC, these kids are talking about how freaking violent it is right now. We are not, we're in our 30s. We don't know what's going on with these 14, 15, 16-year-old kids now. They live in a whole different culture and climate. And so I'm not here to judge what these kids are going through. And I'm not here to justify any of their actions, but I'm here to say that this is the reality of the situation. If baby girl felt like she needed to have a knife to protect herself, she clearly wasn't out there for no reason. Now, I do want to take heed at what else is there, because we got to speak truth to what is truth. There was so many damn parents out there letting them kids scrap like that. And we need to call out the grandmothers, the aunties, the fathers, and all that other BS that we saw outside too. Y'all are also responsible. There's so many people that failed this little girl. There's hella people that were out there that could have stopped this fight. The neighbors, the father, the auntie, and everybody else that was there was way too many adults outside to not have stopped this chaos and confusion, to the point, if this is true, that Ma'Khia had to call the police by herself. She was out there as a lone soldier. And so unfortunately, this police officer, took her life by lethal force. I do not agree that that was the steps that needed to happen. And I hope that we do take the necessary steps to take action. But this little girl failed. She was failed.
One thing too that always gets to me with the police is like they push the narrative so hard that they want to be heroes and they want to be viewed as heroes. And that's how everybody talks. But when it's time to put your life on the line, they never want to do it. Like you want to be a hero, but you never want to be heroic. Like if you're the hero, you're the police, like jump in there. Like, why are you coming in there half stepping? You see kids fighting, like get in there and break up the fight. Get in there and do something. Like it's just, but when it's us, it's not about being a hero. It's always a bang, bang decision. You know what I mean? And now you got a 16-year-old that got shot 4 times in the chest. I mean, why was 4 shots necessary? And there's just so much. And everybody's like, they want to say that, well, the police are in the moment, in the heat of the moment. Well, this is what you train for. This is what you do. Like, this is your job. And you volunteered for it. Nobody forced you to be a cop. If you decide to put the badge on, have some integrity. So I don't understand, but I do think you're right. I think Ramona's right as well. Adults out there, you see kids fighting, you shouldn't let that go. You see a kid out there with a knife, you shouldn't let that go. And I think what bothers me even more than that with the adults is that little girl had already called the police. So she had already felt unsafe. So how is it that she feels that unsafe and she's in her community surrounded by all of those people and nobody stepped up to make her feel safe? It's a failure on everyone involved.
It's a failure on everyone, and blood is on everybody's hands, in my opinion. So, I mean, we could just talk about this story all the way through and through. It's, Ohio is a stand your ground state, so really to pull up like that, I mean, this girl, she had the right to do what she needed to do in real life. You know what I'm saying? And she was fighting hella girls. So, I mean, listen, we take in white mass shooters down and they come in alive and they stop and get cheeseburgers on the way to the jail. Something else could have been done. And the fact that this police officer pulled up and the first thing he thought was, let me go ahead and shoot and kill somebody. He ain't firing no warning shots. He didn't pull out no taser. He didn't think, hey, what should I do first? Who should I talk to first? Who's the person I called? And you got all these, it's just such a chaotic scene. And like nothing is going through your head, but let me kill somebody first and take this person down because they're about to be stabbed. It just was, it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. And again, we have to move forward on the next story, but we will keep you guys posted on this and again talk about it. So let's talk about some more police and people being taken down. The shooter, Kyle Rittenhouse, the Kenosha shooter, who was the 17-year-old that was charged in killing I think it was one protester, killed one protester and wounded the other during the unrest in Kenosha after a police officer shot Jacob Blake 7 times in the back and wasn't charged. And so a riot came out. And so this police officer is out of Norfolk, Virginia. Shout out to Norfolk State University. We have no ties to this police officer, but a Norfolk police officer has been fired following an internal investigation into reports saying that he not only donated, but expressed support for Kyle Rittenhouse. Tragic. Let's go ahead and see how this $25 donation got his butt fired.
America is badly in need of a lesson in how to send money online without identifying yourself to investigators. Matt Gaetz is learning that, and we're also learning that as the result of a story in The Guardian about how some active duty cops, including in leadership positions, have been donating to vigilante killers' crowdfunding campaigns. We have a data breach to thank for this at Give, Send, Go, a Christian crowdfunding website that's revealed that serving police officers and public officials have donated money to both the vigilante murderers, far-right activists, and fellow officers accused of shooting Black Americans. In many of these cases, the donations were attached to their official email addresses, raising questions about the use of public resources in supporting such campaigns. The beneficiaries include Kyle Rittenhouse, who stands accused of murdering 2 left-wing protesters in Kenosha last August. According to data from the site, he raised nearly $600,000 between the end of August and the beginning of January. One of those donations, which was for $25, was made on the 3rd of September last year, anonymously, but associated with the official email address for Sergeant William Kelly, who currently serves as the executive officer of internal affairs in the Norfolk Police Department in Virginia. You really got to wonder what Give, Send, Go thinks anonymous means when they still list the person's email address. But anyway, he left a comment saying, "God bless, thank you for your courage, keep your head up, you've done nothing wrong, every rank and file police officer supports you, don't be discouraged by actions of the political class of law enforcement leadership." Which is very sweet until you remember, oh wait, the reason that he knows who Kyle Rittenhouse is because Kyle Rittenhouse went somewhere he didn't belong with a gun he never should have had to kill 2 people.
First of all, can I just speak to the fact that y'all getting real spicy in them comments? Welcome to Clapback. Welcome to Clapback, Danny, because they clapping back.
Yeah, they're on Danny's head right now.
They on your line, brother. We're gonna let you live. Y'all got it. But back to this story. What do you think? I mean, this is an internal affairs executive officer of internal affairs. Like, you're not even just a regular like street cop. What are your thoughts about using the use of public resources to fund killers and support them?
I gotta jump into the notes on this one. So the original story was broke by The Guardian, and there was a site that I have never heard of, but it's called Give, Send, Go. And it's marketed as the #1 Christian crowdfunding website on the net. So these are Christian folks that put this together, and you could come and you're supposed to anonymously give them. I know, it's crazy. Not even gonna touch that. I'm just putting that out there. Y'all can do what you want with it. But the interesting thing is it's supposed to be anonymous, but man, these people is out here using their .gov emails. Like, they're giving money without their name, but then they're using their work email.
Government emails.
Yes, or they have other cops that donated to stuff, but they didn't use their name, but instead they used their badge number. So it's like they just gave this up. But the interesting thing with Kyle Rittenhouse is that, I mean, $586,940 was donated for him to defend himself legally. And it's just like that. I mean, that's America. Speaking of Kenosha, Wisconsin, there was a group of cops from Kenosha that donated money to support Rustin Shesky. That's the cop that shot Blake. So like after he shot him in the back, we all seen the video. What did his fellow officers do? They donated money to support him. I mean, they got police officers that donated money, city officials that donated money, politicians that donated money, firemen that donated money. And it's just the rabbit hole goes deep, and it's not just these situations. It's like there's a lot of different Black people that got shot by cops, and then those cops got supported, and it's all on this site. So it's just the rabbit hole went pretty far. And I mean, this is why it's so hard to give cops the benefit of the doubt, because things like this happen. And I mean, people were just coming out of the woodwork to give them financial support to fight in court for this horrible stuff that they do to people. And I mean, this is why we feel the way we do about the police.
Listen, I mean, I know they tearing your boy up in the comments about saying, like, I hate that the government is dividing the country and everything is not racist. Guess what? A lot of stuff is, though. There's a lot of stuff that's racist, and white supremacy doesn't mean you're calling me the N-word. Sometimes it's veiled in your financial support of things that are just anti-Black, period. You know what I'm saying? So if you ever want to find the dirt, follow the money trail. Please let us also remember that police are public servants. And so another thing that we're talking about is if you have a police officer who's making donations and contributing to a person like Kyle Rittenhouse, who is charged of killing 2 protesters who were coming out to speak about the injustice of the shooting of Jacob Blake, and you're going opposite and supporting that. Basically, what you're saying is, I stand in support of this. And so I think it's crazy that we have a public servant who's supposed to be nonpartisan and who's supposed to be there for both of us. I'm thinking about, who are you really out here protecting and serving? Because it doesn't feel like you're serving me, brother. It feels like you're serving on the other side. Kyle Rittenhouse was a 17-year-old kid who had absolutely no business being outside and had absolutely no business having a firearm. And so you got all these people standing behind him. He was not allowed to have that firearm. You should have been 18. So he already was breaking the law, but you feel like he stood up and was holding this, holding the city accountable. But why? Jacob Blake did absolutely nothing wrong but walk away from a police officer who was tugging at his shirt and then shot him in the back 7 times. So with that being said, I'm clapping back at that. And we need to continue to track and find this money trail so we can continue to root out white supremacy, point blank, period.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to fire the cops. At the very least, not even just the cops. If you're a public servant and a trail comes back to you, you didn't put your work email on there, you didn't use your badge number to donate to any of this, you should, I mean, they got to do something. Like, how, I don't even know how to.
It's like, if I'm a politician and I'm saying I serve everyone equally and I'm here to serve the people, and I make a donation to an organization that's anti-Semitic, I'm supporting their vision. Even if I'm supporting the good thing that they did. If this organization they feed the children, they donate books, they're making sure mothers, got everything they need, whatever it is. If they have done something in the past that's anti-Semitic or anti this or anti that, you are also supporting the bad things that they did as well. And so you have to be very careful with your resources should you be a public servant. If you don't want to be a public servant.
Right. But especially if you're going to use your work email, because now you're representing them. Like, if they would have used their personal email, it would have been anonymous. We never even would have known. The whole reason why we know is because they use their work emails or their badge numbers, and that's how it was tracked back to them. Once you put that work email on it, Now you're representing the company. You can't represent the government and do something racist like that. That doesn't line up. So everything you said is correct. And this just is taken to the next level, that these people have the audacity to use badge numbers and government email addresses in doing so.
Well,
the Christians that put this website together too. You guys are doing the Lord's work right now.
Amen. I want to spin this story a little bit. So our next topic is on the Supreme Court ruling that will make it easier to sentence juveniles to life without the possibility of parole. And so I'm thinking about this case with Kyle Rittenhouse, and I'm like, okay, he's 17 and he shot and killed somebody, and he's a juvenile. And so is somebody like him beyond repair? And so let's talk. We have a clip. Let's talk about what the Supreme Court ruled, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
We are back now with some developing news from the Supreme Court. Justice correspondent Pete Williams is with us. And Pete, just in the last few minutes, there's a ruling that comes down that affects kids who get life sentences, right? Life without parole.
Right. 9 years ago, the Supreme Court said you can't have mandatory life without parole sentences for people who are under 18 when they commit their crimes. This involved a 15-year-old from Mississippi who killed his grandfather, stabbing him 8 times. The defendant in this case said, OK, I know I can't have a mandatory sentence, but there has to be some specific finding by the judge that I am permanently incorrigible, that is the legal standard. And today, by a vote of 6-3, the court said, no, that's not the standard. As long as the judge has some discretion to consider the youth and immaturity of a defendant, that's enough. And life without parole can still be handed down. So this was a 6-3 decision with the 3 more liberal justices, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Breyer, dissenting. The majority says the Supreme Court's decision in 2012 has already reduced a lot of these sentences from life without parole for youthful offenders, but they declined today to make it easier to get those sentences.
This was a tough one to listen to. I mean, the Supreme Court just has so much power. I mean, and you're thinking like 9 people have all this power in their hands to really control what they feel the Constitution represents. And so the Supreme Court on Thursday basically reversed its recent movement towards the leniency for minors convicted of serious crimes, and instead said that judges need to specifically find a juvenile murderer beyond rehabilitation before sentencing that person to a lifetime in prison. Mike, first thoughts on this?
Well, the vote was 6-3, and surprise, surprise, all 6 of those votes were conservative judges that decided to give this kid life without parole. I just more language that came out too as I'm reading this report is that the judges, they don't even really have to like consider maturity or moral competency when deciding if someone is beyond repair. And I mean, it just hurts my heart because we know who's going to be beyond repair. It's going to be us. When you're looking at the Kyle Rittenhouses of the world, no, those kids can always be saved. And we see that all the time, like when those white guys go and rape people and get slaps on the wrist. So it just makes me uncomfortable, though, the idea in general that you could have someone under 18. And yes, we're talking about murder here. It's serious. Like, I don't want to downplay the seriousness of murder, but to take someone under 18 and send them to prison for the rest of their life without parole, that's inhumane. Any way you slice it, like there's a better way to help that kid, and putting someone in jail for the rest of their life isn't going to bring the person back that they murdered. Now we just have 2 lives that are gone. There's no way that I can agree with this. They're kids.
You know, I think, you know, living here and doing the work that I do, I'm around so many people that get killed that I'm almost desensitized in a way that when I look at my group chats and my text messages, and it's like another kid got killed, somebody else got murdered, you know, and I'm almost numb to it in a sense. And so I think to people who are separated from a place that is so violent and they don't understand that people actually really do kill each other, that it's not something that it's almost not foreign to me, Mike. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's almost, it's almost too normal of a concept. My homegirl told me that one of her friends, 12-year-old killed, or 13-year-old killed their 12-year-old. So you got a mother who lost two sons who are both under the age of 15 that one killed the other in an argument. How can you think that in a situation like that, when we're talking about, there's real research that supports that children under the age of 18 don't have the same type of thoughts, in the same type of rationale that we do. I mean, the United States alone is the only place that sentences people to life without parole for crimes committed before they're 18. Like, we're the only place on earth that does that. And I just feel like, what is the criteria, Mike? Like, what is the criteria to decide if a juvenile is beyond redemption? Like, there's a saying that we're better than our worst days or something like that. How do we decide? How does another human being decide if you are beyond repair? The Supreme Court used a case, this Mississippi case, as they were arguing this to make this decision. And I'm going to pull up my notes for this one. But so Brett Jones, he killed his grandfather in 2004 in Mississippi after a fight over his girlfriend. And he just had turned 15 at the time, and he stabbed his grandfather to death. Well, he goes to court, and the courts decided twice that he was not eligible for parole for his crime. But one of the Supreme Court justices basically argued that, the judge in sentencing did not make the necessary judgment to the Supreme Court that was required before extending such an extreme punishment. So to your point, Mike, he never looked over that criteria to decide whether or not he was able to be redeemed, right? That he was eligible to be back into society. One thing to note about that case is that this guy, Brett Jones, who's now a guy, was a boy, at his resentencing, his grandmother, the wife of the man he killed, his grandfather, and his mom, both stood by him and said that yes, he can be rehabilitated, and his correction officers. And so they said that he's really grown up, he's shown remorse, and he has the ability to change. And so I think when we talk about prison, first of all, it's not a rehab center. It's not like they're rehabilitating anybody up in there. So how are you asking anybody to change, and you're not offering any mental health or trauma related services? You barely can program while you're in there. It depends on what facility that you're at. You're eating the most trash quality food, and we know that's all tied to your mental health. How is it that you're asking somebody to change to see if they can be rehabilitated, and there are no rehabilitation services being offered? And so to think about a child who commits an act of violence, to me personally, I don't feel that it's necessary to give them a life sentence without the possibility of parole, and never giving them a chance to redeem themselves when we absolutely know that they can be redeemed. And so I'm very disappointed in this. I don't know.
There's no way that I will ever agree with throwing away our children. If you're giving a kid life without parole, you're literally throwing their life away. You're not even giving them a chance to learn. You're not giving them a chance to grow. You're not giving them a chance to do anything. I just read an article in the Seattle Times, the state of Washington. It looks like we're looking at trying to change the juvenile age potentially to 19. And I just glanced at the article. But in that article, it mentioned that our brains actually continue to develop until we're 25. So
Absolutely.
even if we're looking at older teens into young adult years, like you're still not, your brain isn't all the way formed. You still don't even have that level of impulse control. I would be interested in knowing about this kid from Mississippi. I mean, what kind of upbringing he had? What kind of resources did he have? What type of access to education and opportunity did he have? I mean, there's so much that goes into the development of a kid that can make a kid go one way versus the other. You can't just throw kids' lives away without giving them any chance to change. That's ridiculous. And even when you look at adults in the United States, the prison sentences that we give our citizens are way longer than any sentence of any other nation in the world that you look at. We have the largest prison population on the planet, most of that being Black men. So no, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the system in general. I don't feel like we should lock people up as long as we do. And if we are going to lock people up, we should do actual rehabilitation instead of just putting people in cages and letting them rot or forcing them to work for cents on the dollar so that wealthy people can line their pockets. I mean, there's so much wrong with our prison system. I don't even know where to begin.
Oh, I know where to begin. I know how to start, finish, and end that sentence. I mean, I'm literally on the front lines with that shit every day, Mike. I mean, I'm disgusted and appalled by this. I think about the number of letters that I have written for people who are juveniles, and you think about their life experiences, the life experiences of those who are sentenced as juveniles who commit these heinous crimes, right? At the time, you're thinking it's so heinous, they're beyond repair, they're this and that, but they're often marked with having these huge, difficult upbringings. Absolutely. With frequent exposures to violence. And they're often the victims of abuse. They didn't just wake up and get here. They didn't wake up one day and think, I want to kill somebody. No, they get into a young lady that I had a conversation with before I went to Mexico. She told me that her loved one committed a robbery, and in the process of the robbery, the gun, they were fighting over the gun. Her loved one was fighting over the gun with the person that they were trying to rob, and the gun went off and killed that person. He was 15. And so, of course, he got a life sentence. But you think about, he had no intentions of going in there and killing him. He didn't. He was a good kid overall, but he didn't have nothing. They didn't have nothing. Mother was a drug addict, didn't have nothing, wasn't there. So you got you and you raising all your siblings, and you only have grandma raising you in your house. You guys don't have nothing. Think about when you don't have nothing, you're willing to do anything. And you're influenced by anything. And what happens is you get into a group of men. Okay, you go into this prison system, and then you're raised by other men. And you're oftentimes, if you're in the right facility, you might be raised right. And so then you get to learn the errors of your ways. You get an opportunity to mature. To your point, research on adolescent brains shows that development of the common sense and understanding is not all the way there. It's not all the way there when they're kids and up until they're 25. So if I think about who I was at 15 to who I am at 33, come on now, I'm a totally different. I was still popping back at my mom at 15, 16, 17, and 18. I didn't know shit and thought I knew everything. Okay. So it's important for us to have a little bit more grace, I think, to these kids who commit crimes. They're talking about someone incorrigible. And that's someone who to be seen beyond correcting, improving, or changing. There's nobody like that. Everybody has an opportunity to change. I mean, obviously, there's some psychopaths out there. We're not arguing for them, but I'm definitely going to argue for the 1,400 kids that are serving life without the possibility of parole. And
I will argue for support. Like, where's the support? Like, when we look at the defund the police movement, for example, like, this is to put more funds into the community so that those kids can have more support. Like, so many of these kids that end up like that are just lost. Like, you think these kids don't just wake up one day wanting to go rob somebody? These kids don't just wake up one day wanting to be in gangs. These kids get pushed into these situations because of the environments that they grow up in. So if we can't put more money into our communities to support our children, this is what it's going to be. But then they end up in a system that likes to treat our kids like monsters. You see 16-year-old Black girl with a knife, you're going to give her 4 to the chest. But you see 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse with an AR, he's pulling up like him and the police is homies. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go monitor these protesters for you, big dog. Like, it's just a whole different light that our kids get looked at versus how other kids get looked at. And when we have cases like this, and our government makes the decision that kids are going to get life without parole, it just hurts my heart, because at the end of the day, I know that this is going to be our kids that this is going to fall upon. It's going to be us in our community that's going to be left with a lot of the pain and suffering from decisions like this.
Listen, I could add 2 on the 10 with that, but we are going to take a quick break. I see you guys is real spicy in these comments. I'm loving it. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to chop it up about the Derek Chauvin verdict. We'll just stay tuned. We'll be right here.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
Welcome back to Clapback Culture, y'all. I see a couple of y'all taking the initiative to clap back. We love it. I just want to say, continue to support us on this show at whereweconverge.com/donate. This is how we can get it out. We are all about having these conversations. So, Danny, I see you holding your own in there, brother. Hang on tight, bruh.
Fight, man. We want you here, man. We want different perspectives, but our audience is gonna let you have it when you get sideways, man.
Yeah, I mean, y'all, listen, y'all. Just let's come. Let's bring the volume down a little bit. So let's talk about this Derek Chauvin verdict. I know, Mike, you said that you had first thoughts on that. I know I was in here practically in tears. I couldn't believe it. I was literally in shock. I didn't even know whether or not I should feel happy. I mean, I'm almost nervous to get too excited because we haven't reached sentencing day. And so I need him to get sentenced and see what the sentence is. What are those guidelines going to be? Do we have a clip? I'm sorry. Do we have a clip, Amari?
I think we do.
It was a seminal moment across the country.
I've heard not guilty so many times, so my mind was like, did I just... Hold on. Did I hear that right?
From Atlanta,
I cried. Tears of joy. Tears of joy.
To Boston.
This is a moment in history, right? That, so many people I hope look back on as a, a catalyst for good things to happen.
To Houston, where George Floyd grew up.
Something had to happen to make him understand that, man, you're not above the law.
Minutes before the verdict, outside the courthouse in Minneapolis, Bree Graham told us she couldn't even watch the trial.
It's been the constant trauma and reliving it over and over and over again. And we need to see some justice to feel like we're going somewhere.
So she and others crowded around their cell phones, struggling to hear the jury's decision. And then a wave of relief sliced through the anxiety that had been tightening for almost a year. Former officer Derek Chauvin guilty on all 3 counts.
I can't believe it. There's poetry in the fact that he couldn't breathe, and it feels like we just got a breath of fresh air. Like, for the first time, it feels like we can breathe.
I don't know.
That's fair.
I'm shocked. I'm surprised. I'm also not very moved. I I'm not that moved. I think, let's celebrate this victory while we can. It's a step in the right direction, but we got a mighty work ahead. We got a mighty work ahead. I mean, to be in the verdict and then have Ma'Khia Bryant killed, shot 4 times in front of her house, in front of her family, on her own property, we got a mighty work ahead. And so I think while we have an opportunity to catch our breath, we still holding our breath, and we just, this is a journey. And so a part of this is a marathon, like the homie Nipsey would say, this is a straight marathon of what needs to happen. And I think the next 3 officers, they better be counting their blessings right now, because this is a major blow to what they're about to face. And so they're awaiting trial as well in the summer in connection with all of this. I need to see them tried and convicted for aiding and abetting, because they stood there and they did absolutely nothing. And so, yeah, we got a mighty work ahead. Mike Davis?
I was that first guy in that clip. Like I couldn't believe it. I was already mentally prepared to write about how wrong this was, or how we got off, or how they only got him on the less charge, or on like the assault charge, but nothing else. When we got guilty, I really had to like step back. And I mean, I was in just as much disbelief as Derek Chauvin was. And he had disbelief written all over his face. There's no way that he thought he was convicted. And I thought the same thing. I do think that people have to allow themselves to take a deep breath. The fight's not over. There's so much more that we have to do, but you have to be able to take your victories when they come, because there's no magic switch that's going to get flipped. That's going to be like, boom, racism is over. Boom, police brutality. Like, that's not how it's going to happen. It's going to be victory. Like, we have to build on it, man. Like, my hope is that this will set the precedent. Maybe now we'll start seeing some of these cases go the other way, because there's been so many times that we didn't see video that was clear as night and day, and then the officer walks. This time we had video that was clear, and the officer got convicted on all charges. So please breathe that sigh of relief, take that in, and then get ready to go back to fighting, because that's what we're going to have to do. And that's the reality. But I mean, I'm happy that this was the verdict that we got. Like, we needed this. The streets needed this. Our people needed this. Our community needed this. Everybody that protested around the world. I mean, like, America was on trial. Everybody's seen that. Everybody's seen how nonchalantly he murdered that man with his hands in his pocket, like he didn't have a care in the world. And the reason why he was able to do that was because he had already had a history of getting away with brutality. This isn't the first person that he's killed on duty. He's done this before, and he still gets to wear the badge. So I think we should take this victory.
Yeah, I think we need to take the victory. It's definitely accountability, and I thought it was super important in a rare moment to watch Derek Chauvin, a former police officer, being taken away in handcuffs. I think we needed that visual, especially because we've lynched so many Black men. We watched the lynching of George Floyd, and now we need to see the lynching of Derek Chauvin. And so before I get too excited, Derek Chauvin, I want to see, they're talking about the guidelines and the mandatory minimums and what he could be sentenced. I mean, he doesn't have any prior convictions that's going to play a part. Even though he's had, some run-ins with other cases as being a police officer, that's not going to have anything to do with him on his state level charges. So again, I want to see what the judge is going to do. I definitely know that there is going to be some type of appeal or a request. Sure. I mean, Eric Nelson, the defense attorney in this case, bravo to him. I mean, I hope he's not still getting death threats, because Derek Chauvin needed representation. But I do think, shout out to him. I know that was a heavy burden for him to represent somebody like this. But to your point, Mike, it was definitely a good day. It was a good victory, a step in the right direction. But we have so much work We need to pass the legislation in order to really start dismantling this policing system. And, it plays into, the fact that the Attorney General announced that the Justice Department is opening a civil investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department and their policing policies and practices.
And before we get there, though, I just want to say, I mean, shout out to the Emerald. You can read more in the article, but I mean, we do have the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and it's a super, super comprehensive bill in the name of George Floyd, and it addresses so much. But a couple of the highlights, I mean, it's creating a national registry for cops who use excessive force so that they can't just leave one police department and then go get hired at the next department like nothing happened. And there's a bunch of other stuff in there, legislation, stuff that stops cops from just standing there and watching cops brutalize people. There's a lot in there. I believe it just passed the House. So if we get a conviction on Derek Chauvin and the George Floyd Act also passes, man, these are victories, and we have to take those victories when we can get them. But this is huge, man. Take this win, everybody. And yes, there's still cops that are about to have their day in court. And yes, we do still have people that are being killed. But if we can get to the place where police are actually held accountable, that George Floyd Act would also end qualified immunity. So if we could get to a place where cop kills somebody, cop can be sued in civil court and lose everything. Cop can go to criminal court and lose the rest of their life to prison. Then we might get to a place where cops stop treating us like this, because we're not going to change their hearts. That's just facts. They feel how they feel. People talk about the culture of policing all day long, man. We're not going to change what's in somebody's heart. But if we have actual repercussions and consequences and actual accountability for actions, that's what's going to change the way that people get policed. So fingers crossed, we'll see what happens, but allow yourself to breathe and have some relief, man. It is good for you.
It is. Thank you, Mike Davis, for all of that. And, we'll definitely, if you send me that link, I definitely want to post that on my social media so people can get more information about that new provision. When I heard the announcement of Joe Biden, or President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris talking about it in a press conference thereafter, I thought, what is Mike Davis thinking about this? What were your initial thoughts that our administration has taken such a strong stance on all of this?
I mean, I feel like he took a stronger stance than Obama ever has. Oddly enough, Obama has something to say now that he's not in office. But I mean, I'm not going to hate on him. Like, yes, I can nitpick. Yes, we can ask for more. But I feel like he gave us more than any of his predecessors has given us in my lifetime. So I'll take that. I'll take that and run with that. Look, I just...
You know what I think? And I'm surprised you didn't say this. They both owe us one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Kamala Harris did a lot of damage, and so did Joe Biden with the crime bills and the prosecution in California. They both owe us one. I am glad to see them stepping out and using this administration to right those wrongs.
Absolutely.
I'm surprised you ain't. I was like, oh, Mike Davis is gonna come in and light them up. But that's kind of how I feel about it. I'm obviously, I'm not going to say I'm a fan of anyone. I'm a fan of anybody that's for the people. And I feel like right now this administration is definitely taking a stronger approach at doing things for the people, and really dismantling systems that seek to oppress us. And so anybody who's on that same mission, I'm riding that bandwagon with them.
We're at a pivotal point in history right now where everything that's happened from the last summer until now, like this can be historic moments that we're living in. And as much as I despise our president and vice president, if they're going to get on board, I'm willing to let them. We need all the help that we can get. So I'm not going to drag them today. Not today. Yeah. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe next Thursday. But tonight,
next Thursday. We'll save it for next Thursday. Well, look, I think it's super critical that we continue to stay in the fight. I mean, you know, I was looking at Omari, I was like, what's wrong? And he's just beat down. I mean, it's tough for us, even as, you know, journalists and commentators, to come on, and we have to really soak up and digest all of this information so that we can regurgitate it and come back and give it to you thoughtfully. And it takes a lot for, you know, this is our portion of the work. This is the part, this is what we do. You guys in the comments, I mean, I even see that you guys are trying to educate and bring one person. If we can take one person every day to dismantle these systems and white supremacy and just try to build unity and have these like more unification projects and really push to kind of offer what we really want to see in the world, like it takes a lot, you know what I'm saying? And if it just means that every day you just chip away at that, that's what we got to do. So I don't know if we really don't have time for the last piece. We kind of talked about enough tonight, I think. But we will continue to stick on these top stories. I am so glad that we had so much action tonight. I mean, shout out to all you guys watching. I do want to give one shout out to my friend Tori. I just want to say shout out to Tori if she's watching. It's super important that people plug you and that you're in the right spaces. She really plugged me with some opportunities, and I just appreciate that. So thank you, sis, if you're watching. Thank you to everybody who watches us every single week. Drew, we see you. Dora, rest in peace to your grandmother. I saw that earlier. I meant to mention it. Leon, thank you for always coming through. I see my auntie Lo on here. Emily, Darlene, I want to, Danny, thank you for participating. Mona, you're here every single week. You know, Egypt, I saw you on here too. Mama Walden, we see you, Mama.
Oh, she was clapping tonight too.
Yeah, y'all was spicy tonight. I love it. I love the spicy. So we love it. Thank you so much, y'all. Make sure, keep us on the air. Donate whereweconverge.com/donate. We need your support to stay on the air. That's our show tonight. It's Clapback. Mike Davis, anything else you want to add?
Man, just second in the shout out to all the fans. Thank y'all for pulling up. We love when it gets active in there. Even y'all that got clapped at tonight, come back, come join us, man. Join the conversation. Tonight was super heavy. Usually we get a little deeper into the comments. We might respond to you next time. So please come on. We love the dialogue for sure.
We do. We love y'all. So we'll be back. This is Clapback. We gotta tell people where you can follow us. Please go follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Treasure of Jewels. Mike Davis, where can I find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Real M Davis, or anywhere that you can find the South Seattle Emerald. Please peep the Emerald. We had a lot of really, really good articles this last week, especially mine, man. So go check us out, man.
Yeah, Mike, make sure you send me that link so I can drop it.
I got you.
All right, y'all. We love you. We'll be back next Thursday. Thank you for tuning in to Clapback Culture.
Peace.